I tested out my other propeller and it seems to go faster. So I grabbed this one and I'm smoothing it out too. The biggest thing is like the mold lines. There's lines like going along here that I got rid of. But then yeah, just overall smoothing it out, sharpening the edges a little bit so they're not so dull. I want to try something on my new boat. Basically there's this effect where the faster you go, the less of your motor power goes into propulsion, because the faster you're going, the more energy the motor has to use just to keep up with the speed, and then anything that's left over gets to add in, gets to push your vehicle. In this case, it's a boat. It's sort of like if you were hanging out a car window that's going 5 miles an hour, you could put your feet down and push and actually like add speed to the car. But if the car was going like 40 miles an hour and you tried to put your feet on the ground, you could go as fast as you want, but you'd still be dragging the car back, because the faster it's going, the harder it is to keep up. So there's this other weird effect that does not happen with cars but happens with boats, and I'm going to use this model as my visual aid. Okay, as the boat, let's take a bottom view. As the boat travels through the water, it drags water with it. So, like most of the... Okay, say the boat's stationary right now and the water's flowing past. So the boat's traveling that way and the water's going... Part of the water around the pontoons is getting dragged with the pontoons. So it's like stationary here, right next to the pontoon, and then the farther away from the pontoon it gets, the faster it's flowing past, right? So right at the back of the pontoon, there's this spot of like stationary water. Not stationary, but close to stationary water. It's water that's moving with the boat, which means if you put a propeller there, it wouldn't have to work as hard to keep up with the boat that is trying to push, because it would be kind of like driving a car on a treadmill. That's what it would be like. Like putting your drive wheels on a treadmill, so they would get a boost as they're driving, so they get more speed. So anyway, at the back of the pontoon, you've got this thing where you've got water dragging along with the boat, so if your propeller's in there, you should get more efficient propulsion. Now, you wouldn't ever want to put like a thing, like a flat thing in front of your propeller to stop the water so that you could take advantage of this effect, because the thing stopping the water would add more resistance than you would get, from the effect of the stopped water. But the thing is, the pontoons are in the water regardless. So that's you're wasting that energy whether or not you take advantage of the fact that is happening. So I'm going to try mounting my new motors right at the back of each pontoon and see how that goes. And theoretically, according to my brains, this should increase efficiency. Either way, I'm going to give it a try. Alright, so here's my boat. And there's the back of the pontoons. I've got these nice posts, which now I kind of wish I put like a few inches further back to be right at the back, but whatever, they're pretty close to the back. I should be able to make something that attaches to these posts that the motor can bolt onto. And luckily, I thought ahead, and the motors, there's one of my motors, I have like these custom mounts, and there's like a faceplate that bolts onto the part that swivels up. So I don't need the part that swivels up. I can just take that part that bolts on and make a thing that can slide up and down on here with a plate at the back down there somewhere that the motor can bolt onto. And then I can use like a little pulley and a rope and pull the whole thing up, or just lift the whole thing up and have something up here where it catches. And I found that to be an easier way to get the motors out of the water than tilting them, at least the way I'm doing it, because I don't have a big enough motor to counterweight the bottom part going up, so it's like I have to pull really hard, and anyway, I find it much easier to slide it up and down. Anyway, so I can slide the motor up and down that way, and then when it goes down, it'll just have to like kind of clamp onto this back part so it doesn't swivel, because the motor mount part has the swivelly part built in. a little bit like these motors back here. You know, they slide up and down on this pipe, but that's also the rotation point. The difficult thing with these, having the rotation point so far forward, is that it's hard to turn. Like, you have to put a lot of force into forcing them to turn, because they're like, you know, they're back in the water, and it's the water sliding by pushes it straight, which isn't the end of the world, but it is much easier to turn if the pivot point is closer to the center back there. I did find these motors quite a joy to use, though, because they're so easy to drag up and down. And if I have to work on the motors at all, this, like the propellers, or take the propeller off or whatever, it's not tilted out so it's so far away. It just slides right up, so it's really easy to get to everything. Oh, and the other cool thing about having this slide up and down thing is that if I get into shallow water, I can just pull the motor part way up and still run it, which is much better than, you know, tilting it part way up, because then the propeller is also tilted as well as moved up. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea to me. I'll have to work on that when it stops raining. It doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon, though. I'm going to get this thing running as efficiently as I can.